What's up, everybody? TJ here. Real quick before we get started with the episode, I'm testing out a new feature called Fan Mail, which is where you can actually text me from the episode that you're listening to. So as you're listening to this, go over to the episode description, and right there at the beginning, you're going to see some text that says, send me a text message. Go ahead, click that. Let me know what you think about the podcast so far. Let me know of any questions, concerns, anything you might have. I love to hear from you. So go ahead, hit that up. I'm excited to read your text, and let's get started with the episode.
We don't like to talk about the ooey gooey, uncomfortable personal shit, right? Especially when it comes to mental health. So that hope is hidden, stuck under a basket far away. It's very faint glow. And most people battling in the dark don't get to see that, and they don't get to touch that. And they are left there to drown.
Welcome to the Keep the Promise podcast, where we help build resilient and well-rounded firefighters.
I want you to know I'm not used to not having a mute button next to me, so I will be loudly slurping coffee since I can't just sit there and hit the mic button like I do on my show.
You just waited till I press record so you could say that.
I did.
Of course.
I wanted it on record, my pre-apology for the sins I'm about to commit to your listeners. This really bothers you. Like, you really need...
No.
You don't need a script.
I don't need a script.
You're much more collected than the rest of us are. I don't think anyone would ever accuse you of decorum, but you're definitely...
Because I haven't seen how amazing this living room looks.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I didn't say decorating. I said decorum.
I know the difference.
Okay, just making sure you understood what that meant.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a fellow podcast host who runs the 5 After Midnight podcast, who is a published author for fire engineering, and who happily tackles all of the topics that we often find taboo in the fire service.
Hi.
Stephanie, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for doing this on such short notice.
Of course.
So today I want to pick your brain about an article that you wrote for fire engineering back in June called Firefighter Suicide. Don't Normalize It. And I think it's fitting that we talk about it on the month of September, which is Suicide Awareness Month, because that is one of those ailments, one of those illnesses, I guess we can call it that, that's taken out firefighters way more than we want to admit. And just like we deal with cancer, just like we deal with line of duty deaths, this is something that we need to get in front of, and we just need to make our people aware of it and make them aware of the path that can lead them there, and make them aware of the resources that are there to help them walk away from that path, and how to continue doing our job without straying down that path. What led you to write this article?
Just being in the fire service for 20 years, I've unfortunately seen it happen outside of my department and inside my own department as well. And just seeing how it's been handled by those around me, be it coworkers, be it the administration. And the article you're talking about in particular actually talks about, we'll get into it more, but the premise of it is that we're around suicide so much that we just become numb to it. So it becomes another death option for us. We lose the shock to it that a civilian would have, that anybody, other people in this world don't see that aftermath of suicide unless they have had a family commit suicide and they've been right there for it. We are a very unique subset of the population that sees it up close and sees the immediate aftermath. And we become comfortable with this horrific way of dying and the chaos of the scene. And I had never heard that talked about before. And so that's something I really wanted to bring to light is, do we lose so many firefighters a year to suicide because we consider it a normal way of dying? compared to the rest of the population.
That's I wholeheartedly agree. I think that just as we normalize every other chaotic and heartbreaking scene that we deal with, that we start getting desensitized to it. And we don't really, when I started volunteering at 18, like most of us did, we got the old talk like, hey man, you don't have to take this stuff with you. Just talk to somebody if you need help.
Leave it at the door.
Right. Or leave it at the door. Or let's go do shots about it. Which I shouldn't have been doing as an 18-year-old. But fast forward to the first suicide call. And I don't want to keep reliving those, but I think I speak for all of us when I say the imagery gets embedded into our psyche, and you can almost feel the energy and the vibe just be so much darker when you walk into that scene. And there's no real way of talking to somebody about it. It's just one of those things that you just kind of walk away, and the next time you experience it, you're like, okay, I've been here before. And then the more and more you deal with, it's just another day that he showed up to a call.
Well, I think, so we go to a car accident, we go to a fire, when we go to these, of all the unnatural disasters we see, natural and natural disasters, these are things that nobody had any control over. They just happened to them. We're barely allowed to be affected by that as it is. But when we are, it's a little more acceptable because these are tragedies. Nobody elected to have this happen to them. I think when we walk on scene of a suicide, everyone's attitude is, well, they did this to themselves. This is a choice they made. And so when we are affected by that, we feel, I don't want to use this word on your show. We definitely feel like a total pussy, right? Mm-hmm. Because we're like, oh man, this person decided to do this. This was their own control. Why do I feel bad about this? Well, you feel bad about this because a human being just lost their life in a very sad, chaotic, and desperate way. You should feel bad about this. And that's part of the problem is we've set up this environment of whatever, this is their choice, this is normal. We forget the entire catalog of events that led up to this person choosing this devastating choice. And I think that's something else, and I didn't address that in the article, that we need to change, is it is okay to feel absolutely horrible and to be affected by that loss of life, that tragic loss of life. Whether it be a car accident, a house fire, or suicide, it is still a loss of life, even if it was their choice.
And I think you have to check in and make sure you are still feeling sad about those things, because that shows that you still have that humanity. Mm-hmm. I feel, and this is personally, that a red flag and alarm bells would start going off if I walk away from a suicide. Again, a very dark scene, you can tell, you can see all the signs. So sometimes they put up pictures of their family members. Sometimes you see that they have empty bottles of liquor next to them, or they might have a journal or the note, or you just see like the implements that are left behind. And that's when you realize like a human being just like me with thoughts and dreams and aspirations and fears took this path. And I think if I ever got to the point that I saw all those signs and I didn't feel any empathy or any sort of sadness, that would be a big red flag to be like, homie, you need help. You need to figure something out.
Right.
Even more so than call them bread and butter, but like bread and butter cars, car accidents and fires and things like that. I don't know. Like when you show up to one of those scenes, it's, and I keep harping on it. It's, you can feel like the energy is just, it's so much different. It's so desperate. You use that word. It's very well said. It's a very desperate situation. I'm also looking at an article that Forbes published back in March
Title, Sounding the Alarm. Firefighters remain more likely to die by suicide than on duty.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how are we getting to this point? Everything else is killing us, and then we're killing ourselves even at a higher rate than the cancer, the drug and alcohol overdoses, the fires, all of these things. Like, we got to change this.
So something that I think leads into it is the military, high rate of suicide as well. So military, police, firefighters, we are the ones who see the chaos, and it's our job to mitigate the chaos. And one thing, we have high rates of cancer. When somebody beats cancer, you hear their inspirational story. It's not something they hide behind. It is something they share with other people fighting cancer. Hey, man, I want to give you some hope. Let me hand off a little bit of this hope. I did it. You're going to do it. You're going to be fine. When we silently battle suicide, you don't see as many people doing it. You see some absolutely brave individuals stepping out there and talking about it, and it makes us all squeamish and uncomfortable. And because people see us being all squeamish and uncomfortable, the rest of the suicide survivors don't speak out. So just the same as having that cancer battle, people who are battling suicide aren't seeing that hope story. They aren't seeing that story of success. And I wonder, what would our ratio be if we hear, because I think we would all be shocked, right?
100%.
I think if we were to look at who has contemplated suicide, who has had a plan, who has sat there in the dark and been on the edge, I think we would be in such shock to see how it hits everybody and how almost normal in our world those thoughts are, and how many people have been through that battle. We don't talk about it because there is such a stigma, such a fear of being labeled. We don't like to talk about the ooey gooey, uncomfortable personal shit, right? Especially when it comes to mental health. So that hope is hidden, stuck under a basket far away. It's very faint glow. And most people battling in the dark don't get to see that, and they don't get to touch that. And they are left there to drown. Granted, there are resources that they can reach out and touch, but they don't have a story of hope that they can hold within them to say, this person did it, this person fought, so can I, I'm going to be okay. And that's missing.
And those are the people that we need to celebrate, because, like you said, that faint glow, we need to make that shine even brighter. And rewinding a little bit to what you said, that we would be shocked by the number of people that we are constantly around. I had a fellow firefighter reach out and said that he appreciated my listening to him a long time ago, because that was around the time that he was considering ending it all. And I stopped and I'm like, that I didn't see it. Like, I would have been one of those people saying, like, I didn't see this coming.
Right.
Because everything else with this man seemed okay. Everything seemed just as normal as could be. And then getting to that point that many, many moons later, it's like, hey, bro, by the way, I appreciate you because I almost did something crazy. And you have no idea how much talking to you meant to me. And I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea.
So one of the things we also don't talk about, and I discussed it a little bit in an article I wrote in June, is that so many of us already have that plan because this is so morbid, but we see so many various methods of suicide, and certain things just stick in our mind. And I think without knowing it, all of us know how to commit suicide and how we probably would commit suicide. So we are already way ahead of the line. Like, a normal citizen has to sit down and say, how am I going to lose my life? Right? How am I going to die by suicide? And they have to become comfortable with that entire plan. We're already right there.
We fast forwarded.
We accidentally have a plan, and we're already comfortable with that concept. So we're at the front of the line when it comes to suicide as an option. So let's say life gets dark. Boom. We're already right there on the ledge, whether we like it or not. Suicide is very time sensitive. And I just wrote another article. It's getting published later in the month on this part of the equation. It's time sensitive. So when you get in that rut, think of any emotion. Think of joy, think of pain, think of fear, depression, whatever. It does not last. Especially that dark spell, that sudden intense dark spell, sudden intense joy. Intensities, they don't last. Good or bad. So when we're in that moment of contemplating suicide, there's a time frame for it. It is going to dissipate. That is another thing we don't talk about, is these feelings of desperation, they're going to go away. They're going to come back, potentially. We got to fix the underlying problem, right? But you have a time period where if appropriate actions are done, you are going to make it. There is hope. And the article really focuses on having what's called a suicide safety plan. Again, something you don't hear much about outside of the mental health world. And I mentioned in that article, I think every officer should know how to do this. I think it should be something that you have people in the department, the battalion, the shift educated on, at least the bare minimum, so they can know how to help somebody that calls them and says, hey, listen, I'm on the edge. And it talks about, hey, I'm sitting in the darkness. Step 1, what can I do to get myself out? Step 2, okay, sitting here playing guitar, that didn't get me out of it. Can I go for a walk? Can I go to the mall? Can I go sit at a coffee shop? That doesn't work. Okay, step 3, I'm going to call a buddy. And it goes down a list. And it starts with, can I pull myself out of the darkness myself and do it in privacy? And as it goes down the line, it's okay, I'm going to call somebody. I don't have to tell them what's going on. And then the next step is, okay, I have to tell somebody what's going on. And then it goes down to, listen, I have to contact a mental health professional. Like, we're in emergency mode. And it talks about making sure, do you have a plan? Okay, we're removing everything in the house that has that plan. It really is just this detailed emergency plan. But I think the coolest thing about it is it advertises self-saving and hope.
Hey friends, I want to take a quick moment to ask you to support the show by leaving a rating and a review on your favorite platform. Your support means the world to us, and it helps spread the message to even more people. We've gotten thousands and thousands of listeners, and those high ratings help our show become more discoverable, allowing us to reach even more listeners and make an even greater impact. So, if you've enjoyed what you heard so far, please take a moment to leave a rating and a review. It only takes a few seconds, and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much, and now let's get back to the show. I was going to say, it's a very progressive plan.
Right? Because as firefighters, we love to fix things. When do we get... You see people losing it on calls when they can't fix something, right? We can't bust through that door. You can't get that ET tube, whatever it is. We're getting frustrated when we can't fix things and things keep sliding downhill. And if you give someone the tool to save themselves and then the permission, if you cannot save yourself, reach the F out. It is okay. And you put those phone numbers in front of them. You put that detailed plan in front of them. You hand them this emergency list that they put on their fridge or in their nightstand drawer, wherever it is accessible. And it is a whole step-by-step. Here's what you're going to do when the darkness hits. And why are we not talking about that more? If suicide is going to be so prevalent in our chosen profession, why are we not saying, okay, here's how to handle this. Here's what to do if you go through this period in your life.
I feel that a lot of it is, I want to call it personal stigma, meaning how much do I think I will be judged for it? And I will tell you, I'm probably wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I feel that if I ever come out and say something publicly that I considered it or had a plan or anything along those lines, I guarantee you, and I hope I'm wrong, but I guarantee you somehow I'm going to find myself up with day work. They're going to pull me off the floor. HR is going to be involved, one of those things. And I feel that we see our overlords is not the good word, but our organizations that we feel that they would have a reaction that is almost...
That you would be penalized for saying...
Exactly.
I'm on the edge.
There's another person that I know who was struggling and, like showing up to work and not giving 100% when he was showing up to work type thing. Lots of swaps, lots of sick calls and everything. Turns out the battalion chief was going to move him to a different firehouse. Different battalion, different shift, different altogether. And it was infuriating realizing that what might have been this man's only support system
was about to be taken away. This is, and we'll get to calls to action later on, but instead of, do you happen to know if the battalion chief sat down and said, "Excuse me, Billy Bob, what are you going through anything?"
Right.
Did that happen? That's what I would love to know.
I think the officer went to bat and said, "Listen, that is probably the worst thing that we can do to this person right now, because it's just going to remove that one piece of stability from his life, and we can't have that." And you posted something recently about the humor in the firehouse and about just joking and pranking each other and having fun. And while we sometimes can get carried away, we both agree that it is so important to have that extra connection to know, hey, when I'm picking on this guy like I normally do and he's not reacting, what's up? What's going on in his life? Hey, when the medic who normally gives me a hard time for everything that I do jokingly doesn't say anything about the stupid things that come out of my mouth, why is she not saying this? It's so key what we do at a firehouse that we don't think is important for mental health to take care of one another.
Well, one thing that is culturally accepted is humor in the firehouse, right? So let's say calls are affecting me. Home life is crap. I don't want to go see a therapist because of the stigma. I am allowed to laugh. There is no stigma against me laughing in the firehouse. And the problem is, and I teach a class on this, and it's that I have to teach a class on this because this should be basic firehouse intuition. We've become a culture, at least in the geographical area where I am and around me, where people have become afraid to laugh. Because what happened was we went way too far over the line.
Whoopsies.
As a culture with some stuff. And we somehow coupled harassment with humor. And so humor took the hit instead of separating the two. And humor was then outlawed and people became afraid of jokes and laughing instead of sitting down and getting to know the people around me. There are going to be some jokes that I don't deem to be offensive that might offend somebody else. And I can sit here and say, "Oh, they don't belong in a firehouse." Or I can make the choice of, all right, Billy Bob is offended by anything about green peppers. I'm just not going to talk about green peppers in front of him. Mm-hmm. There are times when Billy Bob will be on a call and I'll be in the kitchen. I can make the green pepper joke. But why? Listen, if it bothers him, whatever. Not going to make it when he's... Right. No harm, no foul. I'm pretty funny. I can make a host of other jokes. Go ahead. Take that one category off the table. I got plenty more to come at you with. And we don't do that. We don't say, no, humor is necessary because humor, that might be what's de-escalating that one person on the edge. Is coming into the firehouse, sitting down at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and laughing with their crew. Now, if we have a silent firehouse, we just took away the one therapy method in that person's life, that one thing that's filling them back up so they can handle the stress of home life and calls during that struggling portion in their life. It is so important. Until we normalize going to a brain doctor as often as you go to a dentist or any other kind of physician, I mean, humor is our frontline drug, our frontline medicine. Do not take that away because of some sort of political correctness, because that's when we see mental health just go in the shitter. Pardon my French.
I like how you censor some words, but not others. This is fun. We've all worked in firehouses where, for one reason or another, be it the officer, be it the senior firefighter, not even certain humor, just humor is not allowed. Like, I've worked at places where that one person comes in and you're like, well, Billy Bob is in a mood today, so we can't joke. Or if we joke, we can...
Poor Billy Bob, by the way, whoever and wherever he is.
Which is funny because I used to volunteer with a guy whose nickname was Billy Bob, so I think of him every time. But those places where a single personality can drag down the entire shift. Mm-hmm. And I'm asking that we all...
God, you lock up. In case he keeps this segment in, I just sent TJ a message saying he forgot to talk about something that he originally talked about in an outtake, and now he's locked up because he can't talk and read a text message at the same time.
Oh, I'm so bad. I am so bad at it.
Continue. Humor. Person. Brings down the entire shift.
Humor the firehouse. Yes, this person brings down the entire shift. This should be almost that call to action, and it's going to fall on deaf ears because by the time the person ends up being this way, they are either too far along in the department and they hate life, or they are too full of themselves and they feel they can do no wrong. But this goes out to those shifts who are stuck suffering under those folks. Do not let that humor die. Do not by any means let that go away, because that glimmer of hope is going to help your people. In spite of how angry that person might be, in spite of how much they just want to complain about, the fleet falling apart or us hiring the wrong people or so on and so forth.
It's that negative Nancy.
It is. And they, just like everything else that kills us, they are a cancer to the fire service.
They are, but I also think firefighters are such a rebellious nature that when you tell us we can't laugh, we're going to laugh even harder now. Because we are line steppers. We are habitual line steppers.
No, not us.
Yeah.
Not us. No, and we already covered it. I wanted to touch on the unofficial role of the firehouse in
It's therapy. Laughter is therapy.
It is. It is. There's that clip from Bob Gallione from, I think it's Rescue 2?
You mean the one I just used in my video?
The one you just used? Yeah. I mean, it's...
Don't act like you don't know exactly what you're talking about, because I just used it on my social media.
I always forget if it's Rescue 1 or Rescue 2, but we've all watched...
Rescue 2.
It's Rescue 2, because from the documentary Still Riding, which is amazing. If you can find it out, I think I bought a copy on eBay. Super bootleg, but amazing. But it talks about the Rescue 2 firefighters, and it's a very iconic clip where he's like, I could be having the worst day of my life, and I show up to the firehouse kitchen, and the ball busting begins, and suddenly everything is okay. Oh, and another thing, talking about humor, because we also encounter those folks who can give it but not take it. Mm-hmm. Once you throw yourself into that fray,
hang on tight.
Right. It's a free-for-all. It doesn't matter if you're a battalion chief or a probie. Like,
you start it, you better be able to continue for the entire ride.
And do not... Some of the best ones, some of the best zingers have been probies that come up with that one-liner that knocks down the 20-year guy, and you're like, okay, that was
amazing.
That was incredible.
No, it's the 3-pointer from across the court, because it's like... Oh, this is the first time we're seeing this. This is amazing. Watching the little baby grow up and make their first joke kind of thing.
So we are our own first line of defense when we have to keep being that way. We're all that we have at the end of the day. Nobody else can relate to the calls that we go on. Nobody else can deal with the stuff that that we do. Nobody else is going to understand. Look, I've been around what I call normies, and, trying to go to a social event surrounded by people who work in offices or in schools, and they're like, oh, little Johnny did this at school, or like, Karen at accounting said a funny joke, and you're thinking, I'm like, I almost got hit by 3 cars on that wreck that we had last night, and then we had a cardiac arrest, and then we made some funny jokes at the kitchen table before running a fire. Like, it is impossible to relate to these normies, which is fine, because we still have each other. We have to keep fostering those relationships and those abilities to communicate with each other and take care of one another.
The next class I develop will be how to talk to normal people.
You have to call it normies, though.
Normies. How to talk to normies. How to survive an event at your children's school with non-firefighters.
Now, is this the point where I read the quote again?
Go for it. We got way off topic. ADHDers Anonymous.
Yeah, no doubt. So this is from your article that you published in Fire Engineering in June of 2023, titled Firefighter Suicide, Don't Normalize It. And it is such a jarring paragraph. And that's exactly what we do with the painful reality of suicides. It becomes a natural form of death for us. We eventually place it on the same shelf as passing away from a heart attack or a stroke. It's a simple way to take the heartbreak out of it. We normalize it, and we accidentally become one step more comfortable with it. Chances are we've all lost someone in our department to it. That's a poignant way to close this out. And if there's one thing that you would tell our listeners as we move along in September, Suicide Awareness Month, what would it be?
Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. I feel like that prevention word is important.
Fair enough. I apologize. Suicide Prevention Awareness Month.
What I would tell your listeners is, there's hope. I mean, it's a battle that I swear to God, I wish I had the numbers of people who have sat on that ledge and either been pulled back by others or managed to pull themselves back. That doesn't get talked about. That light that is hiding under that basket is bright, and it is there, and it exists, and it's not a hopeless situation, no matter how much people feel like that. For people that aren't on that ledge, be kind. I mean, look around you and just be aware of each other's baselines, and be aware that, you know what, if somebody seems like they need somebody to talk to, F it. Even if they're annoying, be that person. Talk to that person. Let them call you. Let them blow up your phone. Obviously, if you finally get the hint that they're just a chatterbox, you can handle that later. But initially, make sure that somebody, if they're reaching out, make sure that they're not in crisis and in danger. And if they are, help them. Know how to make a suicide safety plan. It's something I believe in. I wrote another article. It'll be coming out in 2 weeks, and I listed resources in there. But the IFF has a really good online course that you can just sign up and take for free online, and it walks you through how to create one of those and how to help somebody out with that. This is something we should not be losing 100 to 200 firefighters a year to this. And keep in mind, those are reported numbers. How many numbers go unreported because of stigma? Because family understandably wants to protect the legacy of the family member they just lost. Departments don't want that shame put on their department. But we all know, suddenly passed away and no explanation. You know what it is. Keep in the back of your mind how many of these suicides people say, I just saw them this morning and they were fine and they were laughing. You don't know the battle that somebody is going through. So whenever you talk about suicide, watch your freaking mouth. Watch how you talk about it. When you get on that call and that Perby is standing next to you and you say, what an idiot, blew his brains out, deserve what he got, or those comments we've all heard of people minimizing suicide, and degrading the person who just lost their life to a battle. Do not do that. Do not continue the stigma for the next generation. Shame on you if you do. Change the language. Change how you speak about suicide. Infuse hope. It is not freaking idiot committed suicide. It's, man, it sucks that he couldn't hang on a little bit longer. It sucks he didn't get what he needed. Make it the tragedy that it is. Don't normalize it.
Hey, everybody. That was a bit of a heavy episode, but I think it's so important that we talk about this hidden killer of firefighters. Honestly, it's there. It takes out 100 to 200 of us every year, and it's something that we have the ability to change. Look, if I'm fighting a fire and the whole building comes out on top of me, not much I can do about it. But there are things that I can do, there are steps that I can take, there are things I can look out for to make sure my crew, the people I care so much for, know and understand that their absence would leave a huge void in all of us. So, to wrap things up, this is that reminder to go forth and as you spend time at the firehouse with that crew that you care so much for, to pay attention to them and to trust them as you do with your life when you're on the fire ground, that you understand them so well, they understand you so well that if push comes to shove, if things are dark, they know how to pull you out of that dark spot. Okay, now let's pivot into slightly happier topics. It's kind of hard considering what we just talked about. But as always, we are doing the patron shout out at the end of the podcast episode. And I'm super pumped because this community keeps growing and growing and growing. And you guys are getting more involved in the Patreon community. We have the little weekly podcast, patron only podcast that we do, the mantras, the workouts. Some of you that are losing a ton of weight, getting the workouts in, just being better members of your crew and better members of society as a whole. And that is just, I love it. I absolutely love it because that is the energy that keeps this project going, this momentum going. So without further ado, let's do the shout out to our newest patron. Special shout out goes out to Louis from Colorado Springs, Colorado. I love that city. I have a lot of fun, stories of adventures and misadventures. Maybe I'll convince you, Louis, but no misadventures because I think I'm way past that point in my life. Next up, Steven from Friendswood, Texas. Zach from Racine, Wisconsin. Last but certainly not least, William from Hayden, Idaho. Guys, thank you so much for believing in what we're doing. I really want to hint at what I'm doing, but it's still kind of low key, so just stay tuned because within the next couple weeks, there's going to be some big stuff happening. I'm so pumped. I can't wait to share it with you. As always, thank you for spending the time together. Be good, be safe. I'll catch you next time. Hey everyone, it's TJ here from Keep the Promise. As you know, this podcast is all about helping firefighters become more resilient and well-rounded so that they can be a force for good within their fire department and their community. But today, I want to talk to you about something that's just as important, and that is supporting firefighters who are going through tough times. When one of our fellow firefighters is off work because they have to go to the Center for Excellence, they have to go to rehab, they have mental health issues, or they have other health issues, it really takes away their support system and it wreaks havoc on their finances and their family's finances. And many times, these brothers and sisters are left to struggle alone, away from their support system and the people who love them without the resources they need to recover. That's why I'm setting a bold new goal. And that is to reach 150 total patrons on Patreon so that we can start a fund to help firefighters and their families during these challenging times. And I need your help to make it happen. With your support on Patreon, we'll be able to provide financial assistance to firefighter families who are battling things like addiction, depression, and cancer. We're going to help alleviate the financial strain that can come with being away from the fire department so that our brothers and sisters can focus on healing and recovering. Now, reaching 150 total patrons is a big goal, but I believe that we can do it together. And when we do, we'll be able to make a real difference in the lives of those who serve and protect alongside us. So, if you're not already a patron, I invite you to join us today. Head over to joinkeepthepromise.com and sign up today. Again, that is joinkeepthepromise.com. And if you already are a patron, thank you so much for your support. You'll be receiving some exclusive rewards and perks as a way of saying thanks. Together, let's show our fellow firefighters that we've got their back just like they always have ours. Thank you for listening. Let's get started with the episode.